Don't be a pest. My cat's here, so, you know. We'll see. We'll see how long she behaves. Not long. Not long. So many. This is probably not like a good clip to leave it on. It's very. Here. There we go. We'll leave it here for a second. Ooh, also forgot. Dang, I'm forgetting so many things. There was a few things I wanted to include. And I forgot. But I have a few minutes right now to see if I can find it. Okay, perfect. Copy. I'm gonna pause. We'll see. I'll improv so much, you know, because I didn't actually really plan this. I mean, I did, but by plan, I mean I wrote it down like an hour and a half ago and then scrambled to find video clips that help me illustrate my point. And, you know, I did that. So, please let me know if the audio is too low for those of you who are in the chat. Thank you. This is my normal speaking voice. So if it's too low, let me know and I will turn it up. But yeah, I'm excited to get started because I love talking about just what goes into artistic choices in animation. Because otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing. I've only learned through analysis. I've never, like, felt, you know, just feel it. Just do it this way. I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm going to give it a few minutes before I start, and then I'm going to start recording. So if any time, you know, if you're watching, and I've turned ads like way down, if not off, but if, you know, things get interrupted or if, you know, you can't make it or whatever, that's fine. If you want to see the full thing, and it's not on my Twitch, it will be in my YouTube channel, which is in my description. I'll be uploading it there tonight. So yeah. Oh, cool. We got a bunch of people in. Hello. I'm excited. I'm excited to ramble about timing. I've never done like an official talk on timing before, but I have done like snippets of them. So I'm trying to like combine a lot of the things I talk about into something that will hopefully help you understand what animation timing is, like where it comes from. Just to give a little context for those of you who, you know, may not know, I've worked in animation for over 15 years. I learned it traditionally on paper with flipping, but I've never done that as a job. I've always worked in Toon Boom Harmony using rigs, and timing was something I really struggle with. Animation actually was something that I struggled with. I could like draw characters and like drawing characters, but my animation was very formulaic. I had a hard time having fun with it. I saw people doing really lively animation and I didn't understand how getting from pose A to pose B in my drawing, like I just really struggled, and it took me a bit, and it's funny because people who know me now, like I talk about animation a lot. I love to animate. I love to teach animation. So it seems a little weird that there was a time that I didn't love it, but I actually didn't. I actually went through school going, I don't want to animate. I want to be a storyboard artist and a character designer. Animation is like, it was so frustrating. And especially as someone who liked to draw characters and saw them moving in my head, right? So, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so I'll try not to like, cough in the mic and all that. I have a mute, so it should be fine. But, uh, it it took me a while to understand the things that would help me make choices for my timing. So what I'm going to be talking about isn't necessarily like, this is how you animate, this is how you do timing. I had to analyze first and understand a few things first, because a lot of things go into timing. So ultimately, I'm going to be talking about what motivates timing, what makes it appealing, how to make these choices, how do you turn the spacing of drawings into something that feels sincere? How do you turn the idea of, oh, okay, like every half spacing I'm adding a new drawing, or I have to antic this before I overshoot that, I have a, how do these rules, like principles of animation, or things we're taught, how do we take those technical things and translate them into what we want to see? So but in order to do that, we need to understand what goes into timing behind all like the mathematics and timing charts. And if you're going, mathematics, what are you talking about? You can get into it. I'm not one of those people. But to start, let's talk about one of the first things that motivated timing, which is music, right? Classic. There's so many classic things. But early animation, the first things that animated stuff moved to was music. It was very hard to lip sync. Like, there's a reason why a lot of the times when you see lip sync in like old silly symphonies or like the Rubber Hose cartoons from like, a while ago, the lip sync's kind of hard to sync up. Oh man, the history of animation. But music is still incredibly important. And actually, music was something I did before I started to draw. I played flute, I played piano, I played percussion, and the concept, well, it's not a concept, but like rhythm is still so important to timing. So we're going to talk a little bit about just like the importance of rhythm and music in timing. And we're going to go here. And this is something just was a style for a lot of animated studios and stuff. I'm not like the best historian, so people may correct me, but as far as like timing wise, music and comedy was what was motivating your timing. Maybe a little loud. So everything's, and the movement is matching with the symphony. It's matching with, like, these things go hand in hand because yes, there are sound effects, but your orchestra is musically illustrating the actions of the character. And this, man, I should have, well, I wrote up this timing talk like not that long ago, but my next pass of this, there is some really interesting history in like the challenges of syncing up animation with music, and the beats were so incredibly important in order to do that. So everyone had to be on the same page in terms of their rhythm. Um, and not just the concept of rhythm, but music itself helps us understand what we want to see in our timing. And basically what that would be like contrast, rhythm, peaks, valleys, a conclusion, a rising action. When I think about timing, you know, I sort of think about music first, in the sense that, like, we don't want to get ourselves into like a Baby Shark situation where all of our timing is the same all the time, because what that ends up doing is the audience, unless you want to lull them into a false sense of security, but like the audience will stop paying attention if there is no difference. So just like a good song, you want your timing to have rhythm and contrast and to work like music. And this is why it was so natural for them to go like hand in hand early on. And I think there's so much to learn from these things. If you're not musically inclined, if you're like, oh my gosh, my sense of rhythm is terrible, that's fine. This is where, like, when people can kind of math it out into like eighths or fourths, because we're going to get into this a little later on. I'm going to go through a few clips. But ultimately, when I think about animation, I think about multiple rhythms within rhythms, like layers of music. So while you may have like the main counts, like 1, 2, 3, 4, you can have counts within counts. You know, like a metronome almost. And these are things that, you know, animators would have to do. You would have to know your rhythms that way, because otherwise you couldn't sync up your actions within the proper rhythm. You couldn't just go with whatever timing you wanted. You had to fit your comedy within the beat. Otherwise it wouldn't sync up. Even the little... Even though the character was moving one way, there was another rhythm inside of it. So like a slow action that was paced on top and a smaller action within. Boop, 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 boop. All these little things add to the contrast, and, you know, it plays to comedy. So a lot of it was that. So I'm going to pull up a clip. I'm kind of going in between like YouTube and like old clips I have on my computer. This is, I wouldn't even say this is new. This is not new. This is more modern, perhaps, but most, you know, a lot of people haven't seen Cats Don't Dance. Is it this one? Okay. I'm playing little Cats Don't Dance. So, you know, music still, especially with like an animated musical, like that has always, you know, persisted, right? So if you really want to practice timing, a musical is such a good... It's terrifying, but I'm a musical girly too, what can I say? So we're just gonna watch the this little clip of the two cats together.
Not bad. A little rusty, but hey, who's perfect?
Rusty?
So there is I'm going to talk about a lot of things, not just timing, because it all ties together, right? But contrast. I'm always going to come back to contrast. Within the world, we don't start off big. We start off small, right? Like music, we don't want to give, you know, go big right out the gates, right? We need to build to something. So it's cute. She's got some, you know, it's a nice little cycle, or not a cycle, but it's like a little, look at that nice look at that pull. Look at how her hips pull, and her torso follows. Like, ooh, I love it. Boop, 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 boop. And it's a nice motion, nice settle, nice follow through. And it's like, yeah, not bad.
Hey, who's perfect?
Rusty?
And then, of course, he's got to show off.
I'll give you Rusty.
Okay, so now we're getting... Again, look at that. Whoa. I'm just going to frame by frame everything. I love Cats Don't Dance. Now you see how... Now she's starting to get into the faster timing, too. And, like... It's not just with timing, it's the whole, film. But we're starting to heighten. We're starting to build this feeling, this sort of, like, big band, colorful. They're full of energy. They're full of life. They're having their dance competition. And it's a good back and forth, right? The reason why we can see what's happening between the two of them, and this is another thing with timing, with acting, it all comes together, is you need to play with the audience's eye of where you want the audience to focus. And I always think she stumbles back. He does more movement. He stops, passing the baton to her. She dances. He reacts. His movement is much simpler than hers, giving her the audience's attention, basically. And that's what's that helps the audience follow what's going on without being overwhelmed by the amount of motion that's going on. That's what's allowing us to appreciate it. I think, like, as an example, I'm a really big fan of the poses in the first, all the Transylvania, Hotel Transylvania movies, they all have good posing. Like, these really wacky things. I like the first movie, especially because of the really dynamic, cartoony posing that went into it. But one thing that I would say that I was like, oh, I wish it was pushed a little more, was sometimes I felt like it moved so fast that I couldn't focus on anything. And maybe that's just me. But sometimes when there's too much movement on the screen, you can't pay attention to anything. So even just analyzing these kind of back and forth and analyzing when a character is stepping back, like, oh, you don't have to make their motion, you don't have to go crazy with them, and let someone else shine. And then you kind of play back and forth with those contrasts. And she's a little spin. And everybody cheers.
Like I said, dancing.
But it's broken. And the thing about it is, and again, this is just this is just talk, timing specifically, but it is only with the big build. Like it's not unbright here, right? But it gets more and more just to take it away. Like, it's only with a proper build of contrast do we get that, taken out. You surprise the audience. You remind them, this happiness is not the status quo. And, filmmaking. Okay, let me show you. Here is, okay. So, getting back to more, like, specific animation timing, like character animation timing, using these ideas of rhythm that you can get from music and, thinking about beats within beats, you sort of want that within a character's motion. And I forget, I wish I had saved it. It was like this great blog that had analyzed this motion of Pongo and showing the different rhythms. So I'm just gonna play like the first little bit. Uh, where is it? Yeah, it's right at the beginning. Cool. So just to analyze his motion and how the different parts of his body move at different rates.
And you know, as far as I could see, the old notion that a bachelor's life was so glamorous and carefree was all nonsense. It was downright dull.
So this movie's great for like dog motion. It's so good. You just analyzing this stuff. Ooh. So we have
Notion that
very...
a bachelor's life was so...
We'll just turn it down. So he's scratching his ear. Now this is the first one. It's not just like, oh, scratch. It's dum bum 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 bum, like it's rising in sort of like how fast it's going, right? So right now we have a very simple motion of a character kind of, well, scratching his ear and settling up, but within that motion is, and this is primary and secondary actions, right? But the secondary action has a fastness to it within the slower motion that gives it a nice offset, that gives it a texture, right? When I see a lot of people approaching character animation and they move the characters' bodies like all the time, like everything's a full body accent, like that has its uses, don't get me wrong, but oftentimes that can, excuse me, well, it takes longer to do. It definitely takes longer to do. Because every time you move everything, if you move the whole body, everything on it has to move, right? Kind of. But I also find a lot of times people do it because they feel like having a character stand there or not move is boring. And I would say it isn't so much about like having a character, stand there or not move their whole body is boring. It may be you're lacking contrast, or there's something there that is boring. But the solution to that isn't too much movement. It is contrast, rhythm, like how am I, keeping the audience on their toes, right? And this is why you want like a range, kind of like a range to work with. And we're going to get into how we make those choices. But like individual character animation, the concept of like little rhythms within rhythms is really a good place to start with if you want to kind of like break, formulas you may have. Even here, it's like a nice settle up, simple stretch. And again, within that stretch, we have a stagger. And even that little head shake. A little flick. As the rest of the body is just, settling back, right? If we're looking at the full body motion, think of this stretched, and then just it's settling down and it's settling back. And it's actually fairly simple mechanically. Well, nothing's ever simple. But, like, it's fairly, I would say, pose to pose in the sense that it has an extreme and it's settling back. But within that simple full body motion, you have a lot of different little rhythms that the head will do or the, foot may do. Here's another great example of it. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I need to turn peaking stuff like crazy. Should just turn it all off. Okay, but just look at how fast he's walking, but how his head timing is just like here. They're offset, right? He's got, he's looking for the other dimension, but it gives the walk, well, it shows like a muscle tension to it, right? Like he's pulling so tough that like his head isn't going back and forth. It's just like at its most tense. Here's another, like, again, another really good example of making sure that everything has its own time to shine. So that, Pongo comes in as Pongo settling up, he's shaking his head. So again, action with, we got our first action settling up, and then within that we have our secondary action of the head turning, and making sure that both of those actions have different timings different rhythms will help draw the audience's eye. And then he stops, and then Roger comes in. So all of this to say that, music being a really big motivator, there is things like, musical numbers and all that, which obviously the music plays a big part, but music and the concept of rhythm and thinking of timing like music helped me a lot, at least, make choices to understand timing better. At first I thought it was like a set of animation rules, and when I went, no, you're not trying to do like a checklist of rules, like, is there squash and stretch, and is there an antic, and did you do all those things are important, but this was part of my missing context. Okay, so a little bit of animation history about the Three Little Pigs, and this is gonna sort of lead me into another motivator for timing, which is the one that I think about the most, which is personality and character acting. So the Three Little Pigs was a silly symphony. It won the Oscar for like best short animated film, and the interesting thing about it, like at the time, was it was very it attracted a lot of animators to Disney, but like the silly symphonies, excuse me, or not just silly symphonies, but the kind of the cartoons at the time, things being very music motivated, comedy motivated. If we think about some Rubber Hose characters, they move in accordance to the music and the comedy, not necessarily who they are as a character. So things had different motivations. And with the Three Little Pigs, it was not the first, who knows what the first time was, but like it broke through as an example. And this is also where the animation and story department sort of were formed at Disney. Like the story department kind of came into play because the concept of going, oh, we need to treat each of these drawn characters not just as drawn cartoon characters, but as characters in their own right. And so we're gonna watch a little bit of that. Oh, dang it, sorry, I didn't mean to cough into the mic. Okay.
I built my house on stone.
You build your house on stone, little guy.
I have no chance to.
So he's still like moving, right? So like this is still classic. This is still like an era where maybe to our more like modern sensibilities, you're not necessarily gonna pick out like really distinct acting characteristics. Like they may seem very similar in timing, but even the idea of two pigs being like a little more flighty and not paying attention, and their stubborn brother like preparing himself. And of course, classic Big Bad Wolf song or whatever. But this was something that, again, like looking back on it, and I didn't think about it certainly when I first watched it, when I had seen it as a kid or whatever, but the fact that it was sort of pivotal in getting artists to go like, oh yeah, we can give them different personalities, and that's going to dictate how they move, even if some are more dancey and one's doing something else. Like, I think that's really cool. The animation history is neat. I didn't respect it enough when I was in school, because I'm like, I just want to draw my characters and make my special show, which I haven't made, so, okay. Where am I? I'm just looking at my notes. Also, hi, Pat. Okay. So, one thing I always want to drive home to people, because, okay, I'm a character acting person, right? Like, I like doing character acting. That's my bread and butter. That's the thing I love to do. Like, give me the acting stuff, right? Character acting is a whole skill. If it was so easy to act, all of us would be actors, right? It's hard. It is hard. And being able to translate that through your drawing is also hard. I was someone who, in like high school, I was like an improv club, and I was like a hammy teenager. Bless myself. But one thing I didn't really understand was merging acting with animation. I didn't understand how timing and characters' personality really came into play, right? Not just how a character moved, but how slowly or how fast they moved, right? The things you think about when you think about timing, right? Timing isn't just like the mechanics of the body. It is also what characters are feeling and how they showcase those emotions, right? So being able to understand that the character that you're drawing, that you're portraying, like, you got to really understand their personality, right? I used to explain it when I was back on the Tangled series. I used to tell people who had a hard time thinking about character acting and timing, I used to think, Rapunzel is your D&D character. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, like, you know how to get into a character's head. If you know how to get into a character's head, you know how to time out their body in something that isn't just mechanics. And we're gonna talk about that. So one of the first things you want to write down if you want to be a character actor, or you want to have that as a strength, is understand that the dialogue is not the acting. The dialogue is not the acting. And which is something that I will say, like, there's a lot of writing that has very on the nose, but when we're coming at it from an acting perspective, usually what the character is saying is not what the character is feeling. And sometimes when we learn about animation, and rightly so, because, like, animation has so many, like, rules to it, right? Like, it takes so much to make the thing move. Like, it takes so much that it's hard to get into discussion of acting, right? Because where's the room for it, right? And oftentimes we can think of character acting as the character moving to the dialogue, or the character saying the dialogue. And that isn't the same. So what that can do is, like, lead to pantomime. And so, like, let's say, at least for me, if someone, like, gave me a character and they said, like, draw the character sad, I would be like, who's the character? I need more context. I can draw a sad face. I can make a sad expression. But I need to know about the character to know how how, you know, they will be sad, right? Because sadness shows differently in different people. I have notes, but I'm also like riffing, but then I go back and I go, where was I? But yeah. But ultimately, I encourage you, when it is appropriate to look a little bit deeper, that dialogue is not character acting. Not necessarily. And I used to, when I would think about like, oh, what are the lines that the character is saying? And then like act out the lines. And I would think about, what words do I have to hit to move my body to make them act the thing? And I always really struggled with like trying to make it look natural. And that's because we don't work that way, right? Like we all move differently. And I have some really great examples of characters that are saying words, but they're not saying what they're feeling. Where's my... Is this it? Yeah, okay. It may be a little dark, so hopefully it's not too bad. So I have clips from Tangled. So Tangled's got some like... Tangled's got good acting. What can I say? I really like to use it as an analysis because I find it there's some really subtle body language in Tangled. Some really good thought process. Now, I'm gonna try to be a good Twitch person. I'm gonna make sure that I'm pausing a lot and stuff because like I don't want to get claimed or whatever. I'll just turn it down. I'll turn off. I can turn off. Yeah. So they're about to smooch. No, you get interrupted. So this is wordless. He is looking and seeing the Stabbington brothers. I think they're called the Stabbington brothers. And already, like, he's not saying anything. We have some realization in his face, and this is the thing. Thought process takes a lot of time. If you want a character to think, if you want a character to go over a dialogue in their head, I guarantee you it's going to take you 3 times as long as you think it's going to take, right? Real thought process, showing it on a character's face long enough for the audience to absorb that they are thinking in their head takes a long time. But he's thinking, we see them walking off again. He's not even looking at her. He's looking off to the side, and he's not moving. I guess I'll turn it up a little bit because there's dialogue.
Okay.
Huh? Oh, yes. Yes, of course.
Is everything okay? Oh, yes, of course. He looks at the bag. Thinking.
I'm sorry. Everything is fine. There's just something I have to take care of.
Okay, he goes like, I'm sorry, everything is fine. There's just something I have to take care of. Right? Which isn't a lie. Like it's very sincere. And the way that it's framed is really nice too. He picks up the bag. He goes, there's something I have to do. Now, we already know as audience members, we know that he saw the Stabbington brothers and he's going to return the crown. Well, maybe. We don't know that as audience members, but she doesn't know they're there. So there is a little deception going on. So this, let me, I'm gonna focus on this scene. I have showed this scene a million times, but it's so good. Who animated this scene? Tell me who animated Rapunzel in this next scene. My heart out to you. I shouldn't. I didn't even. That wasn't supposed to be a joke.
Okay.
Okay, so this is really, really small. I'm gonna play it again.
Okay.
Okay. So let's analyze this a little bit. Because Rapunzel is bountiful, joyous, energetic. She's running everywhere. She's screaming. Like, we know up to this point as audience members, like, she is bursting with energy all the time. So how does she show fear? How does she show uncertainty, right? Like, what does this mean? So, and as the audience members, like, what does she say in this scene? What does she say? She says, okay. But what does her body say in this scene? Well, what her body says, hi. Oh, here we go. Using the wrong tools. The first thing she does, her eyes flick down to the bag, which she knows has the crown in it. They flick back up to Flynn Rider and look down at her hand. She clenches her hand. There's a tension. She tenses. And when she tenses, she says,
Okay.
okay. Her hand clenched. Is that okay? Now we can see as an audience she's not okay. But because she is looking at the bag specifically, she's turning that over in her head. She's going, is this the thing that I was worried about? Like, is it gonna And when I talk about timing, I have to tie it into acting, because oftentimes when we talk about timing, we talk about like how we do the character movement, right? And then there's this idea sometimes that it's like characters always have to move. And that's not true. Like, you can have and again, we're going to go through some other clips, but like slightly lost my train of thought. It's the ramble, right? It's fine. We do this. But the body language, yeah, says a lot. And this is what it was. The absence of movement. The absence of her being like, like, is she questioning that he's going off and perhaps leaving her? Yes. But how does she show that? Well, she's keeping a smile on her face. It's a tense smile, and she's clenching her fist. And her absence of movement probably says more than her being more of like like, what's he do? Where's he going there, right? And there's not to say there's anything wrong with those reactions, but contextually, when we're talking about understanding timing, there has to be a context behind it. What is that context? The context of her absence of movement and very slow and deliberate timing is her acting, is the absence of movement. So when I talk about timing, it's like not just ease in, ease out, or snappy, or over. All of the animation principles exist within the purpose that you're trying to have the character. So there's that one. Here's another one. It was impossible for me to like do this without going into like acting analysis. I can't distangle the two. They're all tangled up. This tangled movie. I love this movie. Okay, so here's another, again, dialogue is not acting. Listen to her dialogue, look at her body language. The body language is the acting, the dialogue is not.
All I was gonna say, Mother, is that I know what I want for my birthday now.
And
All I was gonna say was, I know what I want for my birthday now. And when she's saying it too, like, she is directly looking at the place, well, she dropped, well, you know, Flynn Rider, right? Because she was going to be like, oh yeah, I caught this guy, and I'm like, I'm an independent woman, Mom, I can get out there. And the mom's like, nah. So this is, we need to have the visual thought process sort of represented by something. So, and this is what, she even have like a, look at her eyebrow change here, right? She's looking at her dream up here. She's looking down at the man she trapped in the closet. Her eyes sort of flicker as she's putting the two together. Then we have a beat where her, like, eyebrows sort of, she has a slight tension in her face. Her mouth closed. I know it's potato quality, I'm so sorry. But, like, her mouth closes, and then her eyebrows, like, squash down a little bit. And what does that tell us? That tells us she's decided something. Then she releases her tension.
All I was gonna say, Mother.
All I was gonna say. So this is other thing about acting that I'm gonna get into, but I stopped thinking about, like, squash and stretch, and I started thinking about, like, tension and release. When the body muscles tense, how we tense them, how we move them, versus like exhaling and lowering the shoulders. And Tangled is, like, my main study for this, right? Like, when I got so excited when I got to work on the Tangled series, and because I love this movie, and it's for me one of the things I use a lot in my animation, which is the shoulders and the chest area and breathing, really getting breathing in. Because even here, again, she's like tense, she's decided something, and then she kind of settles down and looks to the side and purposely covers up the weird chair with her hair. Because now she's like, okay, I have a different plan. I'm not going to tell my mom that I want to, like, escape. No, I just want shells for my birthday. But Tangled's a good study for that. Okay. And then there's another clip I want to show. Yes, this one. Okay, so we're talking about character personalities and how they showcase their emotions, right? If you're going to have, like, so what's the dialogue?
Oh, darling, I know you're not strong enough to handle yourself out there.
But if you just...
Rapunzel, we're done talking about this.
Trust me.
Rapunzel.
I know what
Rapunzel.
I'm... Oh,
so, as she's talking, she's normal here. When Rapunzel keeps pushing, the first thing we notice, she's angry at this point. She's frustrated. She's angry at this point. But she's not going to show it. Because why would she show it? She doesn't want to be angry at Rapunzel, right? She manipulates her. But we know she's angry. Look how close her teeth are. Look how clenched her teeth are here.
you just...
Rapunzel, we're done talking about this.
We're done, like, that tension, and again, it's the tension in the jaw. We're done talking. That's what gives it this kind of, like, restrained feeling, right? And having characters moved in a clipped action, a tense, where you don't have a lot of secondary. You don't have them go, like, pointing a finger. You're not going to go, and, like, overshooting. It's going to be tense. It's going to be taunt, right? That changes the timing that you use. And so when we talk about characters getting angry, even if she didn't escalate because Rapunzel kept pushing, so she's getting angrier.
Oh, what
Rapunzel.
Oh, come on!
Enough of the lights, Rapunzel! You are not leaving this tower! Ever!
Like, she gets closer and closer. But to me, it's this clip here.
Rapunzel, we're done talking about it.
We're done talking about it. It's that start of the rising action, and it's those acting things to me. That to me is more indicative of like anger, of Mother Gothel's, you know, specific brand of anger. This is more of how she probably shows her anger, because she normally doesn't get pushed to the point where she's yelling, right? So it's just because it's really special to Rapunzel. So I really, this movie is full of nuances. I really do. If you haven't watched it in a while, or you never, maybe you like, I was out of animation college, like I'd been working for a few years when I saw this. So maybe this was like more of like a childhood movie that you had. I do recommend like going back and like looking at it through this lens. So, okay. Okay, so next. Okay. Now let's talk about... Oh yeah, here's another really good contrast. So when I have different characters, we're going to talk a little bit about physicality, but I really think that having different characters moving with different timing, like really pushing physical contrasts, can be really interesting. So this guy just eases down, right? So very slow timing, right? This is just like this weird. And then we get to this guy at the end. So contrast can also be used for comedy, but if we treated each one of their entrances the same way timing wise, right? Like if we all had them like, you know, step up and do a thing, it wouldn't be as interesting. So when I think about, you know, what timing I'm going to use, I also, you know, it's within, you can have contrast within your singular, like, here we go. Contrast within a singular character motion. This dude here, where's the contrast? Just his fingers in the bow, right? Just his fingers in the bow. While the rest of him is just staring off into space. So we're actually, contrast-wise, we're going very minimal, where he's just kind of, you know, nervous. Then we're going for a bigger action. And then we're going for another minimal action, but one that's different from the first action. It's actually more minimal with some contrast within it, because if it wasn't just the singular pluck of the string, it wouldn't be as funny. So that's kind of talking about the contrast between characters. And if you're someone who wants to do a lot of character animation, or you want to make your own animated, you know, series, different animated, not styles, we're going to talk about worlds in just a second, but different animated styles, but the physicality of the characters really lends itself to your timing in huge ways. So I'm going to show where are... So, since we're talking about how emotions drive timing, here's an extreme example of that. I'm going to show you two examples of how a character's emotion directly impacts the timing. And what that means is, without the character's emotion, how would you make the choices of what movement to do, right? It is the core part of your understanding of how close to put the drawings together, or how far to take the drawings away, how fast it's going to be, how slow it's going to be, right? The idea of timing and animation all comes down to these choices. So we're going to analyze a few of these clips. This is from Cats Don't Dance. Classic.
Darling, here.
So fast. She's really fast.
Flanagan. The title of this movie is The Archangel.
Like, do you not love Darla Dimple in this house? She is extreme. And again, it's the feeling that she's not just angry. She is so she is holding herself back so much and is so tense that she is twitching and contorting, and her eyes are kind of like bugging out. If we just went from these poses nice and smoothly and snappy, it wouldn't feel tense. It would just feel like we're going into a pose. We're going into a pose.
The Archangel.
And even look at she's just settling up, really nice. So we have she's going from, and there's no ease out. There's no ease out. So if we're talking about technical timing here, we're going into a stagger, and she moves out of that stagger fast enough that we don't have, this is the first frame of ease out. We're going straight from closed eyes, clenched, pushed back, to already traveling in the direction settling up. So it's almost like she almost poof, she doesn't pop up because she's got a nice settle. But if we look at this smooth motion here, her body is settling up as her hands follow after, and then within the settle, her fingers start to break the contrast, right? What else is happening? Well, she's settling up. What are we looking at? Oh, her hands are moving. We see her hands, and they reach out, and they go up to the next scene.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Here's an angel. Can you tell me who here's an angel?
Why, you...
So these Castone Dance is a really it's got a really good classic multiples, right? So she's shaking her arms so fast you cannot see them. His head is being shaken down, up and down so fast, you're seeing multiples of it. So understanding timing also understands what happens when you can't go faster than putting things on ones. Multiples are really good with that. But she is so extreme in her anger that it's showing through every part of her body.
Darla, sweetheart, celebrity, darling.
And it's such a good... So when I talk about... going on a little bit of a tangent, but not everything having to be antic overshoot settle. And this is a common thing where you get the kind of bounce to hit the beat, right? Oh, character is saying something. They do a little bounce to hit it. Oh, the character is, doing a thing. They got a little bounce to turn. Again, nothing wrong with this, but switching it up helps a lot in helping the audience to keep engaged. What antics are for is for the audience to catch an action that would otherwise be too fast, right? And this is a good example of it, where instead of going from this pose here into pushing his tie back, we have one frame where she pulls back before she yanks forward. And then we have the overshoot, because it was so fast, of course her hair is going to overshoot. Overshoots happen when characters are moving so fast their muscles cannot stop them, right? When we're talking about overshoots, we're talking not just about the concept of, things passing over and coming back, and overshooting, but what is that material made out of? because a hand overshooting or like an upper body overshooting, like the 101 Dalmatians clip when like the dog stopped, right? And it's like Roger goes, whoa, and he goes over the dog. That's an overshoot, right? It's like his body is trying to stop him. Things like, you know, material, or like ribbons or hair, they don't have muscles. So the way they're gonna like overshoot to a stop is gonna be different from a limb or a hand because we have muscles. So when we think about like physicality of characters, we need to understand that the physicality is the muscles that drive the motion, right? Without the physicality, you don't have any timing. You have rules that you are following. Okay. Okay. So I also don't know how to like end sentences or paragraphs, so I just trail off. I do it all the time. It's fine. It's fine. Well, where was I in my notes? Okay, cool. So, I have talked about music and rhythms within rhythms, actions within actions, and having different rhythms for contrast. Gone over like how characters. Oh wait, I wanted to show another. Oh, sorry, getting ahead of myself. This was an extreme anger, right? And the thing about this is like, look at how much movement there is. She's going from pose to pose. She's yelling. She's extreme. There's multiples. There's like so much movement, right? And it's done well. So let's look at the other kind of extreme. Because ultimately when I see people exploring emotions, especially sadness, like a lot of the time they go like, this is extreme anger, right? But now we're gonna get into, where is it? No. Oh, did I not put it in my folder? Oh my gosh. Silly me, just a second. I say it's like the saddest clip in the world. It's not, but animation. It's another clip from Tangled that I'm like, who did this? Who did this? I want to thank you personally. I think it was in my. I have way too many folders on my computer. Oh my gosh. Here it is. Here it is. Okay. So I want to talk about this scene. And also why I can't separate the idea of timing from acting. Because without I don't know what to do with my timing if I don't have acting or physicality. We're going to talk about like reality of the world in a second. But this clip I like to show when I talk about sadness. Especially because, again, the idea of acting not being character dialogue. Acting is how the character shows the emotions. And so when I talk about timing, people think about movement, where a lot of the times the hardest timing to do is the subtle timing. It is the timing that you barely see it, that it looks like almost nothing. That's the hard timing. That's like the hardest timing I've ever had to do, honestly. So, again, clip from Tangled. It is very, very subtle, which I give so many, like, I've analyzed this clip so much, and I'm nitpicky on acting. I'm not nitpicky. No, I am. I am particular. But the subtlety in this has a lot of thought in it. And this is why I like to talk about tension, intensing the body, and releasing the muscles, because when I work in animation, you know, like you have characters in the background, or you have like a group of characters, and sometimes you don't want a character to just stand there, right? You don't want them to be frozen. It looks unnatural. So people will give them movement, like, they're shifting to the side and things like that. And a lot of the times I ask people not to do movement for the sake of movement, which means do not do movement because I go, that's boring. I better put a movement in there. And then I put a movement in there. You can do it though. You can do it. But when it comes to your own projects, if it's something that is really important to you, try not to do that if you're working on these skills. But generally what I say, instead of doing movement for the sake of movement, think about the character relaxing or tensing up in reaction to whatever is going on in the world, right? Usually if there's background characters, they're going to be reacting to something, and we don't want them to always just bounce back and forth. And this scene is sort of the one that I use as an example of what if you just have them breathe? But she's good. Lots of good wordless communication here. Obviously, she's the one getting him ready. She's his rock, right? It's almost like it's like the domestic thing of oh, let me just sort out your tie, right? But it's the metal. And she's sorting his collar and looks up. You see her eyebrows. And again, this reaction, timing isn't just anticing, overshooting, and instead of being oh, are you sad? No, all it is, there's not even a blink. There's just, she looks up, her pupils shift, and we see what she sees. I could go on about the overuse of blinks. This, to me, goes, you don't need blinks. So now we see what she sees, the sad king. And honestly, this is so subtle. I don't even know if you can see it when I'm frame by framing. But, he is just breathing. We see a little bit of an exhale in his chest. But he's... again, a little bit of eyebrow. She realizes, oh, he's having a hard time. We do a little blink. Also, take a look at this. It doesn't even have to close. You don't have to close those blinks. And then she reaches up. And he leans into her. And she smiles and looks up. Just a little smile. Keep up. Wipes his tear away. And look at that. Exhale. He goes down, he sighs, and then he puts his hand up and he settles up and he looks at her. Now I'm obsessed with this scene just because it is wordless communication, and it is very strong wordless communication. And when we talk about timing in animation, we need to also talk about acting, because timing is not what's going to make your animation good. It's part of it. It's part of the animation principles. Don't get me wrong, right? But with me, I had to understand character context before I could understand timing. I had to understand that for me, sadness is moving slow, not an expression, right? Because if I see sadness as oh, a character is sad, so I have to move them into this sad expression, then I'm using a formula. But if I say, well, this character is sad, so all they're doing is exhaling, and if I'm just exhaling, it's just slow and subtle and down, right? That's all it is, and it doesn't need to be more. Or I know a character is really heightened and energetic, which means my timing is going to be fast. Maybe I want to look up how to do multiples. Maybe I want to, all these things. But understanding that context, it helped it click for me. So when I talk about timing, I could show you stuff, but man, it's all in the context. It's all in the context. So now let me talk about the animation rules that I like. Okay? They're the animation principles. They are good, but the animation principles And I kind of want to like just put it into context. Like anything, it is a way of explaining animation that will click with some people and not click for others. And it didn't really click for me. Like, for example, an animation principle is timing and spacing. Yeah, but what timing and spacing? Do we make it fast? Do we make it slow? How do we know? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Also same with squash and stretch, right? Like squash and stretch is an animation principle, and at the time, like when these animation principles were made, like it was a bunch of artists trying to improve their craft and get their thoughts out of their head, right? So we can always evolve on that. Like the animation principles are not a checklist of rules. Sometimes like people treat them that way, but they're not. They're observations. They're thought experiments. It's a way to explain this medium. But a lot of other people have done it. So for me, did I also not move this folder over? Oh gosh. I was gonna put all my notes into one folder, but then I realized I didn't. It's fine. It's fine. I'm pretty sure I remember where I put it. There we go. I just wanted to read out some of Chuck Jones's rules for good animation. So, let me read. Okay. So I guess I can put it up for these are not all of them, but I've kind of bolded the ones that I really like. So number 4 is, there is no sympathy without believability, no real laughter without sympathy. So what he is saying is that an audience cannot empathize with the character on screen unless it is believable. So when I talk, like, with animation timing, it isn't just the technicality of it, it's like how hard it is for us to get people to sympathize with a drawing, right? But that's why believability is such a big thing, and a level of sincerity. So if you start with a character, you will probably end up with good drawings. If you start out with drawings, you will also certainly end up with limited characters, caught in the matrix of your limited drawing. Therefore, it is not what or where a character is, nor is it the circumstances under which he finds himself that determines who he is. It is only how in a unique way he responds to that environment, and those circumstances that identify him as an individual. Hopefully an interesting character becomes interesting because of the uniqueness among his contemporaries. So what he's basically saying is, like, it isn't about, like, people are attracted to sincerity, right? And they're attracted to, you can't slap sincerity on something that is just made to be cool. Like, and there's a reason why a lot of, like, the more, like, recent movies are not hitting. People understand sincerity. So a lot of character acting comes from sincerity, which informs your timing. As animators, our goal is to, he also put this somewhere. Where is it? Animation means to invoke life, not to imitate it. I love this. The whole, like, animation being imitation of life. We are invoking a feeling, and it can be a feeling that isn't realistic, right? It can be a joke. It can be fun. We're evoking something, and you need to be a part of that. So you can't write down to an audience. Yes, I'm going to go back to one of the first ones, because some of the other ones, it's like, I like what he says, but they're not always applicable. But the thing about Chuck Jones, and I read, so it's like his autobiography, like Chuck Redux, and where he had these animation rules, and it really helped click for me that a lot of what I was struggling with in understanding animation and understanding animation timing is that I was looking for a rule and a formula. I was going into a new project or a new scene or a new show going, okay, what am I supposed to do? Give me the rules, right? I struggled when I didn't have those rules. And the rules are dictated and are different every time. They're different every time. There will never be a time when like you will learn a formula or you will learn a thing that works, and then it can be turned on its head, right? So understanding the different realities of animation is a good place to start to understanding timing. So I'm so sorry we're not like really getting into the minutia, but I want people to understand that whatever the animation project you're on, be it personal or in work or, you know, whatever, to understand that you are entering your own little universe, your own little world that you're going to be working on. And I want to talk about the... let's get rid of this. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Chuck Jones, at least Chuck Jones and his sort of range, right? And... okay, where am I going? Well, so what time is it? Okay, it's 3:13. Okay, I'm making, okay, talk. So, I'm gonna kind of go over two worlds, quote unquote, because I hear people talk about animation sometimes, and I do this too, where we talk about different animation styles, right? If you look at something like Looney Tunes or something like the Dover Boys versus Scavenger's Reign, some may say that, like, oh, well, of course they're different animation styles, right? Like, one is wacky and silly, and one is, like, more grounded in reality, and all this kind of stuff, which is true. Like, yes, technically yes. But when I think about animation timing, if I'm an animator, if I was an animator on either of these shows, yes, I would kind of see it as different styles, but what clicks more in my brain is different realities, different worlds, different physicalities, right? You need a certain amount of, what's the word? It starts with a V. It's long. I read it a lot, but I don't say it with my mouth words. Basically, there has to be a cohesion to your world. You have to set up rules. If you have a world where, you know, someone like Looney Tunes, right? Like someone falls from a high height and they bounce. It would be weird if right beside that someone fell off of a high cliff and didn't bounce, but actually it was horrifying, right? You know, different worlds have different rules to it, and that's what leads to the believability of the audience, right? As animators, and as, you know, just like doing timing, we're artists, like, it is everyone's responsibility, regardless of the department they're in, to be a part of making that world cohesive. And timing is part of making that world. Your animation timing is a huge part of making that cohesive. So this is a little bit of the Dover Boys. So Dover Boys is always shown as an example, and rightly so. It's classic.
Standpipe at Miss Cheddar's Female Academy close by.
So here, I'm just going to show a little clip of it. Okay.
Yoo-hoo! Yoo-hoo! Yoo-hoo!
Look at this! Man, nothing like the good old Dover Boys.
Soon on their rollicking way.
This was known specifically because of the amount of basically kind of smears and wipes that they did. Where's a good scene? Even just with how she moves, right? Like we see her move like this. This is setting up an expectation of the audience, right? We're for a ridiculous time here, right? look at this. Look at these silly guys. Look at these silly guys. The tone itself, the way the characters move, speak to the reality of the world they inhabit. Now, here we go. Here's the classic.
Standpipe. Dear rich Dora Standpipe, how
I
I love
miss-
her. Father's money.
So she... Oh, wrong one. Going in between... Okay. Man, so many wipes. Let's wait back a little bit. Here we go. Look at that. It's great. So for those of you who aren't sure how to do wipes or have never done wipes before, one thing that the best way to kind of sum it up is you are like 1 or 2 drawings are taking the place of 5. So look at how stretched that face is there. Look how the head goes from here, because it's like pulling up and then it goes up, but the body is filling in the rest of the arc. And he pulls the reason why the leg is wide isn't necessarily because it is stretched so far to be wide, but it is taking up the place of multiple leg drawings all in once. And that's what makes it go by fast. That's what gives it that kind of like swoop, that
Double drat them.
double drat them. So here we go. We got another multiple or another wipe here. So we have slight ease out, then a multiple, and the multiples and smears and stuff are generally on ones. And they always favor the pose they're easing into, right? So this hand, even though it's wiped, is... I should analyze more of this. I'll just keep on these talks. I'll just keep on these talks. But it's kind of dragging from where it was, and it's being pulled to where it's going to be. But this all works within the reality that has been set for it. You wouldn't be able... Like, I've worked on shows that it would look weird if you used a multiple. It would look odd. People would be like, oh, no, yeah. Like, some don't use it, right? So, let's get to another example. So, this is not our world. We don't move like this, right? So what that means is the animation timing and how the animators have... Because we have to create the physicality. The reason why I talk about worlds and acting and muscles is because when we talk about, the illusion of life or evoking life or whatever, that's what we got to do. We have to make people believe things are alive through our drawings and through how close or how far those drawings are away from each other. Spacing wise, right? So it's a lot to think about. But with something like this, because we don't move like this, obviously it's comedic, it's funny, it's wacky. The purpose of this is for us to laugh and have a good time and be like, heck yeah. But here's the opposite, right? Here's the swap. And this is why timing varies depending on what you are trying to do. Right? When people say, like, how do I do good timing? I'm like, it depends. What are you trying to do? You're not gonna find... There is no, this is how you do good timing. There is just, what are you trying to accomplish within your scene, within the reality? So, this is Scavenger's Reign is, sci-fi. Obviously, it isn't our world. But it feels very close to our reality. And characters wiping to these wacky poses, in contrast to something like this, there is a utility to the animation here. Like, here, let's move. Oh, yeah. It's poor little creatures, like the way it moves, like it's struggling, which, as fluff. This is the thing I love about Scavenger's Reign, all like the alien planes and stuff. But like, everything is floating and fluffy, and it looks fine. Like, aw, look at these floating little pollen, right? But then it gets stuck, and then it doesn't come off. And suddenly, all of these close-ups we're having of it, sticking to her. And now, is she afraid? Yeah, she's looking afraid. And this animation is, like, we would say it is more like a grounded, like in reality, where it's just kind of like, again, it doesn't need antics and overshoot. She's not going, what? Oh, and like, bouncing as she's going back, right? And if your show was more cartoony and you wanted bigger, exaggerated, like, what, like you could do that. But in this context, because of the stakes, because of the tone of the show, of the reality of the world, of the characters, right? And kind of like an example of this is, when you see do's and don'ts about, hey, when you're drawing, make sure to squash the face, and they show like examples of faces going, and like, the amount of squash and stretch, and this is how you should do expressions, and move it this way, and draw it with a line of action, and sure, yes, if that is the reality of the animation you want, right? Like, style. And this happens especially in North America, where a lot of how we approach animation and what we see as like good animation is really centered around Disney. It doesn't have to be, right? Like, it's been very watered down. So when animation is any style, right? You can do whatever style you want, but that dictates the timing and the stakes of your animation. Even just like the slow kind of creeping, the fact that it's not fast, the fact that it's like, consistent, and then it's this very slow, deliberate moving towards the creatures that basically kind of like, paralyzed. Right, like, that's cool, but it is the slowness of it and the methodicalness of it that builds tension and builds stakes. Animation isn't just how things move, right? It's not just A to B. It's the physicality of the character, the personality of the character, what you're trying to say, what you're trying to do. And all this is a lot. So as I'm showing you, this isn't to say that you have to have all of these things down pat in order to have good timing, right? That's not true. I struggle with I had a job in animation, and I struggle with animation, so you're fine. You're you're good. But when I am stuck with my timing, and when I feel like I am getting into I'm getting into a box, I'm using the same timing over and over, it's getting formulaic, maybe I feel stuck in a rut and I want to elevate myself, like how, or even how do I get the character from point A to point B, right? You have to think about, like, what is the physicality of the character, right? Like, if a character is old, they're going to move differently than someone who is young, which means you're going to time out their walk cycles differently, which means you're going to, if a character is sad, you're probably not going to animate them in a manner that gives them snappy motions, right? So when I think about timing, these are the things I go over in my head. I do, like, this is actually, I think, a good place to stop, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another talk about timing, but I am going to make this other one more technical, as in have some timing charts for people, and we will draw over top of animation and break down some of the timing in a way that you can put to your own timing charts and offset stuff. I think that would be really cool to do, because this is very much like discussion. I just wanted to talk about this stuff. But this is a good, like, part 1 to help understand timing itself and the nebulousness of it and what encompasses it and what motivates it. And then we will choose some specific examples of, like, how these things differ in maybe more of a controlled environment. You know, like, doing an animation, and maybe, like, if I was to change the reality of the world, how would that change my timing and how I would approach my timing? And I've done different styles, like, you know, I've done, like, the more wacky stuff or whatever. So I think that would be, that'd be interesting. I've been looking for a way to kind of tie in the different styles and showing how to do them with something bigger, and I think that's the key. Cool. I think that's most of it. That's most of the stuff I want to talk about. So to kind of sum it up, kind of wrap it up a little bit. So timing is motivated from a lot of different factors. You as an artist will not use every factor. You will use different factors within the project you're on, depending on the goal. But the things that do motivate timing, and to think about if you're stuck about timing, is what is the rhythm of my scene, especially if you're a music person. Do I have the same rhythm? Do I only have a beat like this? Do I need, like, how are we switching up, right? Like, and rhythm is very much like, am I using the same formula each time? And if you find that you're doing that, a good thing to do is make your fast parts faster and your slow parts slower. I am very much a middle person. I always water my timing down accidentally. So if you feel like rhythm is a thing that you struggle with, or you have a lot of timing that is always the same, do the timing you feel comfortable with, but then try to slow down your slow parts. Push your contrast. Make the fast parts faster. More contrast in your scene will help your timing stand out more. So rhythm, music, that motivates timing. The next thing that motivates timing is personality and emotion, how the character, like who the character is, how they show their emotions, how they move their body. That motivates your timing and how you have them interact with their world. That motivates their acting. And then the reality of the world is honestly one of the first ones, because that dictates the physicality of your characters. Not just what they feel, but like the world they inhabit, right? Like, what is the physicality of the world? Are they walking through snow? Are they walking through water? Is there no gravity? That's something physical. You have to consider that when thinking about your animation timing. Like, what's their body physicality like? Are they big? Are they small? Are they huge hulking monsters? Like, here I'll put in, had the early animation test for Hilda. I think there's like a little bit at the end here where she sits up. Oh my gosh, it's so old. I don't even know where they got this. But as an example on Hilda, the mountain, or sorry, the mountain giants, or just, you know, the big giants moved slower than everybody else, right? Because they were so big and hulking that oftentimes we would put them on 3s and 4s, sometimes even 5s, in order to like slow them down so they looked big and huge. So, you know, physicality plays a huge part in you know, your timing. And, you know, contrast to that, we would have the elves, right? Like these little dudes. And the elves could like zip around, they could pop into poses. There was even a point where like the elf king's head and like limbs popped off and then came back on, which an animator named Scott did. I got from the comic. It was so good. But I can't have an elf, a little elf that's like this big, I can't have it move the same way as a mountain giant. If they both had the same timing, if they both did walks the same way, they would not have a shared reality. They would be in different realities. So you have the reality of your world. In Hilda, the way we sort of separated it, and the way I kind of pitched it to people, is like you have the like you have the like elves on one side, the fantastical creatures on one side that are like wacky, magical. They can pop into where's a good Yule was. Yeah, so like, these dudes are like a little bit wackier, bouncier, you know. But we would have these like fantastical things that would like be snappy and wacky, and we'd use multiples with them. And then we would have so we'd have those, and then we'd have the human characters, which, don't get me wrong, the human characters could still be fairly like energetic and snappy, but we never wanted them to be as energetic, as physically snappy as the fantastical creatures, right? I wouldn't want to move Hilda the same way I would move Alfred. They are physically different. So we have basically like almost like 3 tiers of movement. We have little fantastical creatures that move around snappy, maybe use 1s and 2s, maybe use multiples, can physically do things that humans cannot. Then we have humans, which are kind of in the middle timing wise, and then we have the big creatures, the giants and the trolls, that not only are they huge, so they move slower, but they're heavy, so they move slower. Like, there's an impact when the trolls hit the ground. They need to feel like they have a weight to them. And that's going to change how people approach their timing, the timing of their walks, their runs, the timing of head turns change, depending on how big a character is. Giant. Not that one. This one, the giant shooter. Okay, so this, this because we're on. Oops.
Where were you on the nights I waited?
This sequence took so much longer to like really plan out, because the giants ended up moving like 3 times as slow as we thought they would, right? Like, you know, they move slower in your head, but when you actually put it out, we're like, oh man, we really have to lengthen out all of these scenes. This all feels too fast. Skip. Yeah, this is on 4s. 1, 2. Oh. One, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this is on 4s, right? So this, and I remember at the time, like, a lot of people would work on 2s, right? Like their motion, you know, ease in, ease out, put it on 2s, fairly straightforward. But it didn't feel right. Like, it didn't feel big enough, right? And putting it on 4s.
You waited for me. for 4,000 years.
And the action itself is just like ease down, ease up. Like, it is fairly straightforward, but the timing is what makes it feel slow and methodical, and it took a while to like get used to it, honestly. Especially because this was like pretty early on. But now I'm like, man, give me 3s and 4s. I'm all about it, right? So the scale of things and how big they are and how heavy they are should factor itself into your timing. And that will help take your animation and your character acting a little further. Because if there's one thing, I notice is like as a trend overall is too much movement. And it's not to say that like movement is bad. If you look at you can have a lot of movement. Cats Don't Dance has a ton of movement in it. Let's do one more Cats Don't Dance clip before I end the stream, because I love Cats Don't Dance. I have 2 clips. I'm just gonna put them back to back. They show like the same thing, basically. So this is Darla Dimple and then her butler Max.
Yes, Miss Dimple.
And Max doesn't move, right? Like he does move, but he is so straightforward and like his hand is just a foreground element. He doesn't even move his head for his hand to come over. And when he talks, he does it without moving his jaw. It's just through clenched teeth. Oh, it's so fun. I love it. But like this contrast is extreme, but I love it. Bring me back some like real fun contrasted movement, right? If you have a character that are physically different, to go a little further with it. An example of where I think it doesn't always work is like Don Bluth movies. I love Don Bluth movie. Like, I love the style. I have such a soft spot. But I find like all the characters sort of move in a similar way. And for me, this is like where it's at. Not all the time, right? Like, I also love Scavenger's Reign too. But when we're talking about like physicality and characters,
Will that be all, Miss Dimple?
For the moment. Thank you, Max.
and the nice thing about this, that I like about this movie, is, man, look at the background, right? It's so nicely exaggerated. It really doesn't need much, right? It's meant to be red and ominous and all that kind of stuff. This is the thing where this isn't like the proper aspect ratio. I'm so sorry, movie. But I miss this kind of simplicity because it really lets the character animation shine. Nice, clear compositions. Nice, clear, like, he walks in, she moves. She moves a lot, he doesn't. He just goes straight forward, back and forth. But yeah, I will, this is basically the talk. That's the end of it. If you have any questions, stick them in the chat. I will answer them the best as I can. But I will definitely do a part 2 where we're gonna analyze some things I went very macro with this. I went very big, right? I went very like, let's talk conceptually about like the realities of the cartoon world, right? But we'll go into like a more of a micro scale and break down timing within character acting and drawing over top and sort of like, yeah. I'll prep some more technical examples so we can see these things in motion and all that stuff. But yeah, questions if you have them. If you don't, feel free to, go away. Don't go away, I'll miss you. But feel free to pop off, and thank you so much for joining me on my chat. So Tapioca Sketches says, do you have any tips or insights on how to implement those duplicate drawings either on the face, arms, and cutout animation? Yes, good question. So there's two ways to kind of do it. Both are kind of fine. It's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So what a lot of people I know do is they duplicate a part. So like, let's say you're like moving your hand and you want to put like a hand multiple on it. What you want to do is like duplicate the part and then draw the multiple hands on the part. So sometimes they make them a different cell within the actual build itself, and that way they can swap it on and off. What you can also do, and this is something that I do more for like full body ones, like when I worked on Wander Over Yonder, I had to do a lot of multiples, and a lot of times it was like full body multiples, right? Like you're spinning the whole body. With that one, what I would do is I would take a piece of the rig, like a hand or something. I would paste it special outside of the rig, just so it has like the palette with it. And then I would, you just draw over top, right? It's just, sometimes a lot of the multiples I used were just floating drawings on top of the rig. That is the easiest way to do it. It is fastest that way because they normally don't have to be too clean because they're, multiples. But that's how I would do it. Duplicating parts, like rig-wise, is not worth it. So I hope that helps. Akanga Dancing Demo says, are there any rules when animating giants besides slowdown? Not rules. I think it is... This is why it depends on what you want as an animator, right? So if you are in, let's say, this is where you get down to like filmmaking and perspective and stuff, right? So let's say you are making a movie about giants and everybody is a giant. Do they all have to move slow? Well, no, right? Because they're within the same realm as other people. Maybe how they move, they're the main characters, that's how they move. With Hilda specifically, we had to slow them down because we wanted the world to have a certain amount of stakes in it, that if she fell, she could get hurt, right? You're always playing that balance of like, what do I want the audience to feel? So I would say a lot of the slowdown isn't a rule, but it was for Hilda because we wanted the giants and the trolls to be grounded in a physical reality where things like a human could get hurt. Thus, we just had to slow them down. So, hashtag it depends, but I would say usually scale if you want something big, it is going to move slower. That's just the thing of scale, right? If things are fast, they're zippy. If they're big, that's why it's kind of slow. So it comes down to, a lot of this is like experimentation, right? Like we did all of our giants on like 2s and 3s, and I remember looking at it when it was all together going, oh, this is still too fast. Like you slowed it down from what we normally do, but it wasn't right. So none of these things are done with I knew it right away and then I implemented it and it turned out exactly how I wanted. These things are things we think about, we execute to the best of our ability, and then we adjust. Fluff Comic says, hello. Yeah, I'm glad you could listen and listen to me ramble about stuff. It took me a while. Like in school, I didn't really think about this stuff a lot because I was so rule oriented and I kept looking at like formulas and stuff, and I was like, no, this is the right way to animate if I do it this way. And it wasn't until I had a few jobs under my belt that I had a little more freedom to go, oh, wait, acting, if I think about what the character is feeling, that will help me not use a formula. So, and it just like was the extra kind of connection, which helped a lot. So, what exercises can we use properly to use these things in our own animation? The only way I can think of is to draw scenes from the movie I like frame by frame. Okay, so that is a great question. Yes, analyzing movies is part of it. Yes, looking at stuff and going, that's a movement I like. How does it work? How many drawings are between, you know, like as she kind of comes around here, like, oh, I like that little swoop in and settle down. I like that. Like, that's something I would want to animate. That's a style that I find appealing. Because whether you like Catstone Dance or Scavenger's Reign or whatever animation it's a style, right? And different styles for different people, right? So when you see something you like, you have to analyze it and go, okay, this is the timing I want. How many drawings? Okay, it's one. One, two. You know, like, see if it's on twos, if it's on ones, if there's a stretch frame. This is how you learn about timing, because it's not about using a correct formula. It's about what do you as an artist want to do and how can you get it. So once you, like, analysis is a huge part of it. Studying animation is a huge part of it. Looking at what other people have done from all different styles and studying it and going like, ooh, I want to take that thing from over there. I want to take that thing from over there. Like, even the idea of, like, oh man, like a character, like, let's say you're looking at this and going, wow, that's funny, I want to have a character that doesn't move their jaw, I'm going to study this lip sync. That is kind of where you start. So I do think that just drawing the stuff you see does help. When I was in school and we were first learning how to draw characters on model, right? So obviously you have a bunch of animators working on a show. They all need to draw the same model. How do they draw the same model, right? Like, how do you do that? Well, you draw over top of the drawing. So what I would do is I'd have a character sheet, and I have my pen and my pencil and my paper, and I would draw over top of the model, and I would break it down, and I would go like, oh, okay, the head's this big, and the body's this big, and drawing over top of things and getting that muscle memory and sort of learning how to train your eye to spacing is great. As long as when you are drawing things and studying them, you're learning about it. It isn't just about copying or drawing over top. It's about analyzing. It's about going, I like this and I want to try it, so I'm going to analyze it to see how many drawings there are. Okay, there's 10 drawings, and they're on twos. Okay, so I know if I want to do something like this, I need at least that much to my saddle, right? You learn these little things, and they make their way into your animation. Exact same way here, art is language instead of art as a dictionary. Yes! And yeah, extremely rule-oriented, so yeah, samesies. I'm the same way. You give me a list of rules, I'm gonna, especially with, like, assignments, right? Like, a lot of this is the jumping from a structure where, and it depends on the teacher, but a structure where especially a lot of animation students will gauge the goodness of their animation by the mark they get. And that's not always true, because sometimes style can be a thing. But when you're worried so much about, like, passing a course or an assignment grade, it is very hard to think about this stuff, right? Like, it wasn't, I'm sure, for like lack of, my teachers telling me things or whatever, but sometimes in the classroom it's so stressful, or even within the studio it can be stressful, so we don't have time to think about acting, think about how we want to push our contrast, right? How we could have a character stand there and another character move and it could look just fine, right? How we don't have to have everything moving all the time, or always being on ones all the time, or whatever have you. And I think it's fun to talk about this stuff. I think it's fun. I think we can all kind of benefit from a little more, like, brushing up on our 2D animation skills, but we forget sometimes that, man, a lot of this is acting first. A lot of this is just filmmaking first, right? Like, animation is a medium. We are actors and filmmakers. Animation is our medium. So we got to dig a little deeper with our context and how we want to, what we want to say to the audience. That does make a difference. So next time I will do some visual animation. We'll go over timing charts. And yes, Kat. Oh, perfect. Come here. Come on, Bubba. Where? Oh, there you are. There you are. Here she is. She knew that we were. Yes. She's like, you're done, right? Is it playtime? Is it playtime? Yeah. She's my little smelly gremlin telling me it is time to go. But yeah, I will do another one of these, part 2. This will be up on my oh my gosh. You want to know something? I didn't record, but it's fine. Twitch has it. It's fine. As soon as I stop this, I will download it from Twitch. I always forget. Anyway, thanks so much for joining. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, your night. Keep an eye on the YouTube. I will have a part 2 eventually. That will hopefully give a little more context on the micro. So, yeah, thank you so much. Farewell, everybody.